Maybe it'll be an earthquake or something. We've had plenty of that lately.
We're in.
All right.
Welcome, y'all. Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hit him. What you got, dude?
Yeah, you got anything?
I
got an
don't
opener?
Nah, I don't have any openers.
Yeah.
Nothing at all?
Nah.
They're making a huge deal of this. The UFC, I think's popularity's, I don't know the data, but I'm sure it's gone up tremendously in the last 10 years. But I feel like, and maybe because algorithms are getting better, so maybe I'm just getting fed my own bullshit more, right?
Potentially.
But I think the UFC's gone like berserko over the last like 3 years. It feels like more celebrities are talking about it. More celebrities go to the game or the fights. There's obviously more fights. They're building up their characters even more. Like some of the top level guys are more diverse in terms of where they're from. Where it used to be very like American and Brazilian.
Mm-hmm.
Guys are from everywhere. And then their celebrityhood, if you go by like at least stats on Instagram, like you'll click any big name fighter and they all have like millions now. Or back in the day, there's like 3, and even them, maybe weren't that much. But with that comes more like drama and shit, which is all part of the fun, right? Of sports, at least. I'm not a huge drama guy, but drama in sports I kind of like. And Merab has a big fight. I think it might be in the Sphere in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they're doing a fight in the Sphere for the first time ever, and he's fighting. He might be fighting O'Malley. Merab is like one of the main contenders, and which we're going to dive into later about like kind of leagues with prominent owners or like independently run in a sense, although they're not businessly like that, but like a Dana White, or we're going to dive into more CrossFit chats. I'm not a huge union guy, always, not to dive into politics, but like a players union makes sense in a lot of these cases because they really are just, fish out of water in a lot of these negotiations. Yeah. And I wasn't aware, but Jim told me that CrossFit has an athletes union. And I'm still surprised like fighters or the UFC fighters haven't done it, especially with some of these fighters that have been around for like 12 years, right? You'd think that's how it would start, is they've been through all the bullshit and then they would try to make it better for the next generation coming in. Long story short, Merab, and I don't really know, maybe it's like his humor or he's just like authentic is some people's argument to him, but he got cut open in training over the eyelid, which, isn't career changing, but it is fight changing in the sense that it's a hard place to heal and it bleeds a lot.
Yeah.
And he's posting about it on Instagram, and Dana White just goes on a tear about how dumb it is. And I understand from both sides how dumb it is. One, you're showing your opponent, a weakness in a sense. You split them there, and the doctor could call the fight right away, and you just lose just because you're bleeding. Whether you're
it becomes the target.
Yeah. And he's like laughing about it and whatever, and I don't know. I do like the drama because I think it was literally at the jiu-jitsu tournament this weekend at the Craig's Invitational. Some dude was yapping in the crowd. Some like very small man. And Merab's not huge, right? It's a smaller weight class. But he's like top of the lower bowl yapping. And Merab's bottom bowl jumps a safety gate, runs up on the guy. And the guy's, like literally, it hasn't been memed as hard as it should, but he's like in complete fear that he's about to die. And Merab just like gives him like a
check.
Let's say like a A+ noogie. Like he grabs his hair a little bit and like he ends up like kind of smirking, smiling, but like letting him know like, hey, you little fuck, like we don't play that. And I'm not exactly where Merab's from, but I think he's from a Stan-ish. Somewhere over there. And so obviously cultures are different, language barrier, but I'm like, dude, it really is like the essence of, and I'm not for violence in any sense, but I am for like responsibility, and some motherfuckers really do need to get off the internet. Like they think they can say anything they want, and you're talking to one of the top 30 killers on the planet, fucking 30 yards from you, probably. Who knows what he exactly said, but I'm like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. So that's Merab in 7 days has gotten, even though that didn't get that much attention, I thought it would get more attention. Because there was also another big fight between, I think, a PFL fighter and a UFC fighter on the Strip last weekend. But his cut is getting shit tons of attention, and probably because it's the big fight coming up in the Sphere or whatever, but
It's weird because I think we have different algorithms then, because like I think of UFC is kind of having peaked and is sort of in a downslide?
I don't know. I would like to look at the data. I almost guarantee it's not peaked. Yeah, it's going crazy. Like the cost of the Sphere, they're having a big UFC all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
The celebrityhood of all of them. If you look on like the sponsor level, they're like social media impressions are up for sure.
Didn't you say they had like a shit ton of sponsors on the?
Oh yeah, insane amount. They used to have like one, and now they have like 3 energy drinks alone. Yeah, they're rolling in dough.
It kind of reminds me of like old school boxing.
Yeah. And a lot of people, I forgot who, I was watching an interview. It might have been an actor. But someone said how they were super into boxing and they just like can't watch it anymore. All they watch is the UFC. Yeah, because the storylines are better now.
Yeah.
You know, it's a streamlined where boxing is kind of like powerlifting. There's many federations.
And if you want like a decent storyline, you have to follow like a Jake Paul. Sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Because everybody just wants him to get his ass beat.
Yeah, I think he's fighting Tyson again. Yeah, they just did like another conference.
I feel like it's like on and off.
Yeah, I think Tyson had some health scares or something, but I think they just had another conference last week. Yeah, I don't know the data, but I would bet money that it's up. Just because there's so many fighters, and the international game is going crazy. The international game at UFC is going crazy. There's fighters from everywhere now that are like super relevant. There's champions. I mean, there's hardly any American champions, which is what you want if you want to be a worldwide sport.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
They just sold, so that could be part of it. Right, the TKO group, I believe, bought all of them. They bought them and the WWE and who knows what else.
Yeah, William Morris Endeavor created TKO to hold.
Yeah, their combat esports.
Yeah, all the combat sports.
We talked about it last time. Netflix, I think, making bids on NFL and stuff like that. But the big one was, that Netflix bought. I don't know if it was SmackDown or Raw, but they bought one of the huge WWE shows, which is pretty giant. Probably not as big as it was in Stone Cold's era, but I mean, you watch one of those wrestlings, and I haven't in a very long time. But you see clips, and like the arena's still packed. They're still packing out 20K arenas twice a week all over the nation. So there's obviously very avid wrestling fans. Jake Paul's or Logan Paul's.
Yeah, Logan.
Yeah, like there's still big celebrity hoods out there. Some people say he's actually a really good wrestler. Like I knew he was a collegiate or like a high school wrestler, but they say in like WWE terms. He's a freak.
I feel like he's like an actor.
Yeah, and he's a good athlete.
Yeah.
He's a good athlete. Where like, that sport in general is kind of new too, right? Like I watched was it Ironclad? The Three Brothers or whatever, what's it called?
Iron Claw.
Iron Claw. Yeah, I watched that on the airplane in
What'd you think of
July.
it?
I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked it a lot. Yeah, that was really good too. And I didn't know that story. That was much before I started watching. I started watching in like probably 99 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a very short-lived WWE fandom, but I watched religiously for about 5 years. Kind of the core of Stone Cold and The Rock, but I didn't really know. I know some of the names, Andre the Giant, whatever the fuck.
Right, yeah. My experience was when I was a kid, and then, just for a while there we were going.
Yeah.
We meeting John Cena.
Yeah, a lot of crossovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the new gen, Cesaro and some of those guys that are still going. And some of the old, fitness homies became big names, like Braun Strowman, the homie Adam. I met him at the Arnold when he was trying to be a strongman, and then he turns into a WWE champion or some shit, So some of that happened. My boy Bronson Reed, shout out to Bronson, who's still fighting right now at a high level in the WWE. Yeah, a lot of meathead crossover.
I don't know how. I think that Tom Finn must have just been too old because he.
Yeah. Hey, he also like didn't have his own shtick.
He was doing everything that came up. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like the Walmart Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
He's like the drunk.
Maybe Dollar Store. I don't know.
Yeah, he's like the drunk Hulk Hogan from the Midwest.
Yeah.
But probably has a shtick in there somewhere. He was probably too old for sure. Even talking to our buddy Luke Hawks, Luke said he like had one serious chat about me doing it, but I think I was like 28, 29. He's like, dude, you're like right on the edge. Like you probably could, and you'd probably be good. And I thought I'd probably be really good too. But at that point in my life, I'm like, dude, do I want to be on the road 300 days a year? Like,
Yeah, I was telling you yesterday. I just listened to a whole long interview with Cena, and what an interesting cat. Like I know. I mean, obviously met him a couple times. Know this some of the basics of the story, but there's just a lot more to it. And like I think that probably we mentioned before that a few years ago he decided he was going to learn to Cantonese.
I think it was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Well, now
I think it was, and I think it was politically forced on by Vince McMahon.
But potentially,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that ever panned out in any way. But now he is learning to play a song or group of songs on the piano for every movie or TV project that he does.
To be featured in the project?
No,
just
no.
for shits and gigs.
Yeah, just to share with friends. And he doesn't read music, so he has to do it all by ear and memorize it. And then
If you're going to go that far, might as well learn how to read music.
I don't know. Some of us are not gifted in the reading music department. I can read a little bit, but not. And I played an instrument, and
Yeah.
I just was. I had to just kind of bounce along with it. And
I'm just saying, if you're going to force yourself to learn piano.
yeah. Well, you spend a lot of time sitting there picking things out, like.
Yeah.
You
I'm just
know.
saying the effort's the same. It's like if you're going to, and it does translate to lifting where everyone's like, well, I'll learn to lift, and then they like kind of learn how to program.
Yeah.
You don't have to be Mozart, but you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
pay attention to what your coach is doing, and you kind of realize shit. Like reading music isn't super easy, but it's not crazy complex. And on piano, it's probably easier than any other instrument, to be honest. It's just like, I don't know.
Piano was not a way that I learned, so that probably didn't help.
Yeah. Other instruments get a little weird sometimes. I mean, I don't know if I could like straight up read a song right now either, because I forget all my keys and shit. But I took an insane amount of fucking music, whatever the hell it's called, history, music, fucking
Yeah.
reading, music, everything. My
Yeah.
whole life, yeah. And some people were freaks with it because it really is just math. Some people were nutto with it. Some of my friends could like transcript shit in their brain and change the keys and all in their head.
Yeah.
I couldn't do all that. But that's where piano's kind of easy in a sense, where it is kind of laid
You
out
just move
for
your
you.
hands.
Well, and every key is there,
Yeah.
or like just right in front of you. It's like a visual version of what's going on. But
Right.
if you play the trumpet,
Mm-hmm.
you only got 3 buttons. Now it's a little more complicated to get every note.
And guitar, where there's multiple ways to get to the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
guitar's maybe in the middle somewhere.
Sometimes you choose a combination of strings and frets that get you to a place that you would normally go another way, but because your hand is already in that position, then you do this, and you know.
Yeah, it's just not as visually attached.
No.
Piano,
No,
it's
no.
directly attached. String instruments, it's semi-attached. Winds instruments get real fucking weird. Drums get a little weird, but they're a little more basic too, depending. Mr. Cena. I saw some movie with him, Schnicket or something. Some like corny ass comedy. It was actually not bad. Who's the redheaded co-host with Bobby Lee? He's a comedian, obviously.
Yeah.
I forgot his name, but he's in it. Schnickety Simon or something. It's
That's-
basically just like a shitty comedy where these 4 friends have lied to all their wives about
Where's the
having a
homie,
5th
right?
friend
Yeah.
just to use them as an excuse. So like, oh, we got to go visit Tommy, and Tommy's not real because Tommy's graduating with his PhD, and then they just take a boys trip to go golfing,
Yeah.
and basically the lie catches up to them. Yeah, this one. Yeah,
Ricky
Rickety Stannigy. I was somewhere in there.
Ricky Snickety.
Yeah.
Snicky.
And so then,
Snicky.
like, they're on
There we
some
go.
trip, and I think they're about to get caught, and then they have to.
John Cena.
John Cena's a drunk in the bar, and they choose him to be the real friend or some shit. And it's actually like for a comedy, it wasn't that bad.
Do they end up just being friends at the end, I'm guessing?
Yeah, you know how it goes. Yeah,
Yeah.
first they hate him, and then the guy's about to like fuck it up, and then they become friends, and then yeah, they kind of end up being on a good note. Oh yeah, and homie looks kind of normal too. Speaking of Iron Claw, what's
Yeah.
his fucking name? Zac
Mr. Efron?
Efron. Bro, he looked crazy.
He looked weird. Yeah, he looked interesting.
I mean, even there, he's got a little jaw
Yeah.
going on. There's something going on with his jaw.
Some going on with his whole face. That mustache is not working really.
Well, you've seen him in Iron Claw, right? Like he looks.
I didn't see it actually.
You never seen his face in Iron
No,
Claw?
I know. Yeah, I've seen his
Yeah.
face. Yeah, for sure. I just didn't see the movie.
Yeah,
I
he
saw the trailer, but
He looks like he fucking. Yeah, they put like a plastic
Yeah, like
AI on him.
On-
It looks insane.
oh my god. Okay. So plastic made me think of this thing I read yesterday, actually on social media someplace. It was a video about particularly guys in prison, particularly in an certain age group,
Yeah.
like up to, early 30s, like high teens to early 30s, shaving down dominoes and implanting them in their penises.
For pleasure?
Fun, I
Oh,
guess. I don't know. Pleasure. I don't
They
know.
just shove it in their dick hole?
No, on the outsides.
Like a piercing?
No, like
You're talking about like a white domino.
yeah, but just a sliver, and then you slice the skin and it goes inside, and then you close it up and it heals.
That's
Yeah,
weird.
and that's actually that is not a thing that has happened in American culture, but other cultures do that with like beads and rocks and whatever.
Oh, like a piercing. Like a decorative.
Still not a piercing, but like in this under the
Implant.
skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like body, whatever. you
Yeah,
call it.
yeah, body mod
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, like a piercing.
Yeah, but like that it was like
Where the
guy
dudes
that-
will do the horns and fucking turn into a lizard or whatever shit.
the guy that was talking about it is like, oh yeah, no, he worked in the prison. He said, oh yeah, he was like in a medical capacity. It's like, yeah, no, I saw a lot of that. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, mental health, I guess, right?
I guess
There's just no way.
I mean, there's
no
something
way.
else to do, but I mean,
Yeah. I've been very bored too, but I ain't shoving stuff in my dick. I mean, I would do my ear, like if they're, like I understand some of that,
yeah,
right? Like, I would understand like being bored and body mods, but I don't ever understand shoving something in my dick.
no,
Of all places?
yeah, it seems like a terrible idea.
Yeah, why wouldn't you do your ear, your nose, your lip, whatever? I get all the piercings. Like, I get prison tats. Like, I understand the game, but I'm never shoving plastic in my dick. There's just no...
Yeah, this Cena was talking about this Amazon movie they did with Aquafina called Jackpot. It's not well rated. It's 5.8 out of 10.
What was the other movie that just absolutely got bombed? Oh, Borderlands. Look that up real
Oh,
quick.
really?
Oh, I heard.
I think
that
it was the
really
lowest
bad.
Rotten
Yeah.
Tomatoes of Fandango of all time. It was like a literal 0.
Oh, shot. The game is great. I love the game.
Yeah, everyone does.
Yeah.
I've never played it.
But
It had a good cast too, right?
Yeah. It's got at least a
Kate Blanchett,
star.
Kevin
studded
Hart.
cast. 4.3 is
directed by Eli Roth.
when it first dropped. Yeah, I
The
don't
Bear
know if it
Jew.
was Rotten Tomatoes or what, but it was literally fucking like 0.
I know when I saw the trailer, I didn't really like it.
The trailer, yeah.
Because
I never played the game, so I was never that attached. And they've never really made Halo, obviously. And I heard the second season was okay, but they came out with a bunch of games recently, game movies.
oh, okay.
Like what was the one last year? Was it Mark Wahlberg was in it? Fuck. And then the
Come on,
Spider-Man.
Uncharted.
Yeah,
Uncharted.
Uncharted. Like they're doing a ton of
Yeah.
games right now, but I'm yet to hear of one that did well.
Bobby Lee was in this.
What the hell?
The Witcher.
Oh, I was gonna say
Yeah.
The Witcher.
But that's a show, right?
Last of Us. The
See-
show.
Oh,
show.
Last of Us people said was pretty
Yeah.
good,
Last of Us is good.
and people say Witcher's good.
Yeah.
Jack Black is in this. Is this
They just grabbed the fucking.
He's in everything.
is
Yeah.
this guy the guy that's in the new Reacher that's so enormous?
No clue.
Yep.
They just grabbed the cast from
Like,
fucking
look at
Jumanji
Look
5.
at look at the size of this guy.
I've seen him.
Yeah, he makes
What's his name? Oliver Richards. No, but I've definitely seen his face.
Richters. He makes the guy that plays Reacher look small when you see pictures side by side.
Yeah, I mean 7'2".
Yeah, and just like all filled out.
7'2" is pretty rare.
That's very tall. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, it must have been the Witcher then that set off this game
the
to
whole
movie deal,
thing,
right?
yeah.
That had to be the first very successful one, and then people started going crazy. Last of Us, the zombie one.
Yes.
I think I watched like 2 episodes. It was good.
I think it's good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I just didn't. Yeah, it's with Homeboy.
Yeah, mushroom zombies.
the Spanish cat,
Oh. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What's it? Whatever his name is.
Why are we blanking on it?
Yeah, I'm bad with names in general. I can't think of any of these dudes.
What? Why are we not remembering his name? 'Cause he's in that movie with.
I feel like he was in everything for a sec.
Yeah, he's in that movie with Nicolas Cage, where he plays his biggest fan. Nicolas Cage is playing himself. It's so fucking hysterical.
Nick Cage is a weird ass character.
Yes.
There's just like so many movies that are so good and so many movies that are so bad. Kevin Hart's like kind of the new fucking Nick Cage. Seems like they just don't know how to say no to a script.
Pedro Pascal.
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 Yeah,
That's the name that we're looking for.
Yeah, Pascal. Yeah, yeah. But Uncharted, I heard was terrible. I didn't play that game either. What's interesting is, yeah, a lot of people probably don't play any of those games.
True.
Right?
Yeah,
The
they're just
Witcher?
they're trying to hit like a.
The Witcher's pretty nerdy.
But I think they have like cult following.
They do. Borderlands for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Oh, Uncharted is what's his name?
Yeah, Spider-Man.
Tom
Yeah, we're
Holland.
saying what's his name? Tom Holland. Tom Holland, Mark Wahlberg, Antonio Banderas. You think, oh, that's a pretty good cast, but like if you have a shitty script,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just the phase of video games. I don't know what's next, but
Yeah, the Call of Duty one.
obviously it went Borderlands. I mean,
But-
Call of Duty got a chance because you can just make up whatever
Yeah,
you want.
you just-
and some of
it's
the
just a
early
war.
the early campaigns were good.
Yeah.
and the Mario one made a shit ton of money.
Mario wasn't terrible.
The most
Oh, yeah,
recent
Mario.
one made a
Mario
lot of
wasn't
money.
terrible. It was a cartoon though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Sonic and them, Pikachu Detective or
true.
whatever.
That
But
one didn't
those
do
are
well,
like
but-
kids movies versus these are trying to like
Like an actual.
yeah, like Last of Us and Witcher are kind of some adult shit.
Yeah.
But Mario was solid. Mario was solid. I watched that on an airplane too. Mario
Yeah.
wasn't bad.
Yeah. Well, to change gears, sort of, I have a rant, and that's about, and this is a sequel to I know we've talked about this before on the show when we were having the problem here in the gym where our local water utility told us that we're using essentially more than a swimming pool worth of water in a month, which was not possible at all. Like, we had one toilet that was running.
They're trying to get our dollars.
Yeah, the one toilet that was running, and the guy from the city came out and said, "Yeah, that number doesn't make any sense. Like, that's not even possible."
Yeah.
But did they change it? No.
Yeah, I mean,
And he's like, "Yeah, well, like he took me out to the meter, and he said, "Oh yeah, leave a faucet on so we can see if the meter's running." It's like, "Yeah, okay, well, the meter's running, but that doesn't mean it's right."
right. Yeah, how did they just not send a crew to check the meter and check their shit?
Yeah, well, I have the same problem at home now, where I had one drip irrigation thing that popped off, right? And it runs literally 10 minutes a week. And it's so one day a week, it runs for 10 minutes.
That's for just plants or whatever.
Yes. And it took me a while to figure out where it was. And then, I felt like I had, drip things to fix it. And I couldn't find them. Ended up going to Home Depot and fixing them, whatever. So it's fixed now. It's been fixed for over a week. And I'm still getting notifications on a daily basis that it's leaking. And I look at the actual usage, because you can see on an hour by hour basis. It says I'm using 16 gallons of water at 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, that's not even possible.
Huh.
That's entirely impossible. It's like they're using some kind of an algorithm
Yeah,
to estimate usage and not actual usage. Why have a meter
yeah.
if you're not actually going to use the information that comes off of it in a legitimate way as opposed to what they're doing? So somebody's supposed to be coming to take a look at it, and the guy showed up yesterday, but they don't tell you they're coming. And my water meter happens to be in the backyard.
Well, and how many fucking other people are going through this?
Well,
like that's
here's-
straight fraud at that point.
Yeah, here's the thing. Our next door neighbor, I think it's not us. I think it's actually the neighbor, or they're getting both meters on one reading or something. But they had some kind of a problem with their sprinklers where they were literally just flooding the gutters for a couple of weeks, and they couldn't figure it out. And I think they may have it under control now, but I'm not sure. but I'm still getting these notifications, and so I'm not happy about this. And it does seem like it does seem like a ripoff, just like a revenue generation thing.
Yeah. Who knows?
Because I think that we've gotten into the point now where we're actually paying directly for our water. Sacramento is way behind the curve, and in that we didn't used to have water meters at all because they were outlawed in the
Really?
city. Yes,
That's so weird.
and now they went and installed them, but that's been a good 2 years, I think.
Really?
Yeah, and so
didn't
now
know.
they're supposed to be charging. So I'm going to get this giant bill that I haven't seen yet, and it's going to be for water that I didn't use. I don't know what to do about this.
What the fuck is a law? Who created a law to outlaw water meters?
I don't know. It happened in, I think, the 50s.
That seems so weird.
Yeah, and it stayed on the books for a
Yeah.
long, long time. And I live in an older neighborhood. My
Oh.
neighborhood was built in the late 40s, early 50s.
That's a weird concept. All of it's weird.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not usually one that looks at conspiracy theories and the government or whatever, but this seems like a revenue generation conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I mean, very, very least insane negligence. If
Yeah.
they're supposed to be running it. You got to have your systems in place, and you should have some checkups to make sure it's fucking
It's working the way it's
correct.
supposed to.
Yeah, because there's no way for us to ever check.
No.
It has to be full trust. Like, there's no way for you to, like, buy a meter and shove it in the sewer system to check that their shit's accurate.
No. And even, there's an app, and so you can look like all the time, and they don't let you put more than one account on it if it has more than one email address. So I have the one for the gym on the app because we've had a problem.
Yeah.
And suddenly now I have to look it up. I can do it on the computer. I have to like stop and think about it and look. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense.
But even still, you have no clue if those are accurate.
No,
They're not
it's
ours.
clearly not accurate
Yeah,
because I'm not
no.
using 16 gallons of water in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing that could be running at that hour that would suck up 16 gallons of. Even if a toilet was leaking, it's not 16 gallons in an hour.
Yeah.
And I don't have a toilet that's leaking, so
Bastards.
yeah, I'm not happy about this at all. Not at all. Well, one other thing is just a follow up on conversations that we had a couple weeks ago now about this tragic situation in CrossFit. And it was kind of represented that, and I think that we talked about this with Dean, that it was kind of represented that some high percentage of the athletes agreed to go ahead with the games after that death. And there's basically a timeline that was published by Barbend saying that they had a very difficult time coming to any kind of consensus on this, and they ended up doing essentially a secret vote.
But then, like, even that, like, if you don't have standards in place, like, what vote wins? Just over 51%?
Right. Yeah.
You know, like, if you haven't set a precedent for how you handle player voting and whatever, you're just making literally everything up on the fly.
Well, when we had heard that they divided up into individual men, individual women, and
It might be
teams.
leaking, by the way. I don't know if you got anything going on in your DMs.
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I can't make this any bigger.
Got some addresses or
Yeah.
who knows what.
Anyway, I had the logo on this iPad, and suddenly it's not there. It was here, 2 days ago, and it's not there now. Anyway, what was I saying? They had. If I can take it off of that, that'll help me. Pardon me. Okay, they couldn't. In those three groups, we were sort of told that there were those three groups, and then they came up with some kind of consensus, and that did not happen. They ended up actually selecting 5 individual women, 5 individual men, 5 individual team athletes, and 5 coaches to act as representative for their groups to continue the conversation. And they ended up sending out a survey.
Like, even that's interesting to me because, like, coaches in CrossFit are, like, a very unofficial thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like coaches in team sports, NBA, MLB, or whatever. They're like attached to the league. A coach in CrossFit is like an arbitrary ass assignment by a random athlete.
Yeah.
You know, so why do they get say? And who are they? Like a coach in the league's been vetted, you know, in the NBA, NFL.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's
this is
it's a very official position.
yeah, this is literally unattached from CrossFit at all.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have a voice, but they should probably be like, they have like no responsibility to CrossFit. So then why do they get like a choice in CrossFit? The athletes clearly do because they're there competing.
Yeah,
They've signed something, they've paid something, and they've shown up, they've been invited. But coaches and a lot of guys have like fucking 30 coaches.
Yeah, and it seems to me that you know, whatever they wanted to express, they should be expressing through the athletes and not directly themselves. Right.
Well, yeah. I just don't know if they have a say in this right now.
Yeah, like globally, I don't know that they should have a say. They were given 3 polarizing options according to this Barbend article: carry on with the CrossFit Games on Friday, cancel the games entirely, or continue with the games but only as an exhibition. No leaderboard, split the prize money evenly, donating some to the athlete's family.
That's kind of random.
Family, yeah. These are, you can see if you're looking at the video version. This is the people who were chosen. Not a lot of names that I recognize, but I'm not way on top of them.
I know most of those names, but I also wonder how you get to choose those names then, right? Like you're trying to whip this thing out and make it democratic.
But how do you?
But who are the fuck are these names? I mean, they're obviously popular names because I know them. Like Danielle Brandon's from SAC, or she went to Sac State. Haley Adams was one of the youngest, best athletes. She's been around forever. Emily Rolf's an OG. Fikowski's an OG. Cole Sager's a mega OG. Panchek brothers have been in the games for fucking 30 years. Like a lot of those are. But then like these coaches, like I said, I've never heard of none of them. And again, I'm not super in tune with CrossFit as much as I used to be, but yeah, what is it like? Oh, Noah Olson, he's an OG.
Yeah, Noah's the only name that I really knew off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, I've seen most of these names, but it again, what about the other athletes? They don't get to choose?
Yeah, well, they ended up sending out a survey that at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m., and they were supposed to, express themselves, and then these 20 representatives came into a room to continue the conversation about it, and that's how they ended up deciding. At 8:30, the results were in. Castro opens his laptop, reports the results to the athletes, coaches, and reps. 78% of athletes say they will compete.
And it could also even be simpler, like compete if you want to compete and leave if you want to leave. Like obviously there's something about unity.
Yeah, and
everybody agreeing, but what are the chances of that?
And some had already left by this point, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, if you're feeling strongly one way or the other, I'm sure you're just going to act on it. I do not know.
No, I don't know either. But I think I can't currently find, that I wish I could find, is a video by a medical professional about what happens if you're already warm, already hot, and you're in the 87-degree water, which is what that reservoir was at the time.
Yeah, like a dog that can't sweat.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Like you're not cooling your body, and your heart rate actually goes down, and you can't perform, and there's a great deal of stress on your body, and bad things happen.
Yeah.
But I don't know, then the, let's see if I can find this without taking this out to the whole world. The union, of course now it's giving me not what I wanted. The union came out and said, made a bunch of demands, and I gotta find it.
Post games.
Yeah, since then. Pardon me.
Yeah, you don't ever want to like point fingers or blame, but because there is no like one place you can point it. But I would say that the players' union didn't have responsibility to make those demands whenever that player union was formed.
Yeah.
Right. Like everyone can be a safety holic post traumatic issue.
Yeah, and so
But like the point of being a union is that you stop these things from happening beforehand.
well, I think too that another issue with union is I don't know that they have a contract with CrossFit to compete. I mean, most unions, that's how they work.
Right.
Most athletes unions aren't just an attempt to have a single voice. They are, for collective bargaining
Right.
around how things work,
Right.
and those things can be challenging.
Yeah, and if they don't have a direct contractor relationship with CrossFit, it's half meaningless. Because then same idea we've talked about, like the Rogue Invitational is blowing up. Wadapalooza is always a big event, and I'm sure there's others that I don't even know about. But there's big functional fitness events that are not CrossFit that would have the exact same issues, hypothetically. CrossFit Games is just obviously the bread and butter, the one that's been around the longest, had the most money, gets the most press because of their ESPN contracts or whatever the hell they have now.
And now there is there's an article in Men's Health by Brett Williams. Actually, I'm sorry. As told to Brett Williams, it's from Brent Fakowski, who was friends with Lazar.
He's a competitor.
And the union is called the Professional Fitness Athletes Association.
Yeah, it would be
It's
interesting.
an advocacy group and not really like a union.
Yeah, so it probably doesn't have a contract with anyone,
No.
which is like fine. Like it's good to have a united voice, but I mean, all this stuff is just hindsight. After a tragedy or something so extreme, like it's too late.
Yeah. What they're saying is we demand an appropriate level of transparency between CrossFit and the PFAA regarding the third-party investigation as to the death of Lazar and subsequent changes made to protect all athletes going forward. We demand CrossFit create an independent safety team to liaise with the PFAA on an ongoing basis, and we demand that Dave Castro be removed from the position in the sport team.
Yeah, like that demand I think is pretty high if you have no contract with CrossFit.
Like, I don't know exactly how they get it. I mean, I don't know how they get that outcome.
Yeah. You just
They
don't
just
show up to the
don't
games.
show up.
But you
That's
could
the
do that
only-
anyways on an individual level.
Right.
Yeah. Being united is good and fine. But again, that's all like hindsight stuff. Like, it's easy to point the finger after a tragedy. If you thought collectively that Dave Castro is a safety risk to the sport, where's that being voiced before?
Yeah.
Right?
And maybe it has been, and we don't know, but it's not
Maybe.
not publicly, so publicly.
Yeah, if this like athlete group is actually united with the top athletes, I feel like that I would have seen that request been made.
Yeah, you would think, and maybe it's just because I don't know. Maybe there are some statements that he's made along the way that did not help his case in that regard, and one of them being that he did the course, but at a different time of day, and the water was so warm that he had to change the way he swam in order to get through it, and was gassed by the end. And I mean, he's not as young as these competitors, obviously, but at the same time, that probably should have been a red flag, and that's probably damning to him for actually coming out and admitting that afterwards. And just, I guess, I don't know. Like, let's put it this way: if I was trying to avoid liability, I wouldn't say that out loud.
Yeah.
Unless I was under oath and forced to, and even then I might be taking the fifth.
Yeah, I guess to me it's just like, what's the core issue and how do we solve the core issue? Because people are going to say a million things again after the thing. And if I'm an athlete and I truly believe that CrossFit's dangerous or Dave Castro's dangerous, you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to stand on a moral ground when you know you're right now.
Right, yeah.
Because history showed it. But where was that fight before?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone, but the athletes in this case sound just as responsible as everybody else. Because to me, you see, at least on Instagram, and again, this is a broad stroke, but you see them hanging out and friends with Castro, and then something bad happens, now you're throwing the bird at him, blaming him. And I'm not defending Castro by any means. No. I'm just saying that if you see, right, like, that's just not right to me.
It does seem like there's maybe...
that's like virtue signaling.
Yeah, a lot of blame to go around, but I think that part of the reason that there's so much blame to go around, and part of the reason that athletes did not bow out, is that CrossFit's kind of torture porn in a way.
For sure.
It's
I think it
it's
was Tallender.
exertion porn. I don't know how to.
Yeah, I think it was my buddy Zach Tallender made a comment. I forgot who he was talking to, but he was talking to someone maybe just outside of CrossFit, and Zach's pretty tapped in for years. Zach's actually kind of tapped into CrossFit almost in a way like I feel like I am, where he's a weightlifter, but he just so much crossover in the early days because he's done it so long. And the torture porn comment is kind of what his general statement was on it, was that, and I don't want to misquote you, Zach, my bad buddy, but I'm pretty sure what he was getting at is that these guys are a little crazy in the head, and they've been trained mentally that pain is good because that's how you win, right?
Yeah.
Same with a marathon runner. Same with any kind of long distance torturous thing, that you find a burn and then you're going to have to stick at that burn if you want to win the event. And that's every workout to some extent, right? Like powerlifting, similar. You have to practice singles because you know at midway through that lift it's going to feel like you can't do it, and you have to hype yourself up to continue to push, and then you push through it. Theirs just happened to be in varying durations, but he was basically saying, like, you're taking 20 of the best athletes that have been taught to push harder, and when it hurts, push even harder. Of course something's going to happen, and that happens in other sports. Boxing, people have died, et cetera, because we're looking at the extremes. And that's where the hindsight thing just becomes weird to me. Like, yeah, it's easy to point fingers after the case, but who was making these statements before if you truly felt this way?
Well, put it in powerlifting terms. Say you were going to do a meet, and you got to the meet, and it was supposed to be air conditioned, and it was 115 degrees outside. So it's Arizona. Let's say it's in Arizona.
Yeah.
And then the air conditioning is broken, and it is over 100 degrees indoors.
Yeah.
Do you decide to go ahead and compete or not?
I'll probably compete, and then I'd take responsibility, right? Again, yeah, if someone dies at that meet, everyone's going to be pointing fingers after.
Right.
But no
exactly.
one during that meet's going to stop it.
Yeah, probably
Or
not.
spotters and loaders. Powerlifting's a good reference point. Like, you show up and your spotters and loaders look like they never spotted and loaded again. How many people are not going to compete? They're all going to compete.
Because they already paid their money and they're already
Yeah,
there.
and you're not, like, judging it.
Yeah.
As an athlete, you're not going in and like, can that guy catch my squat? No one's ever looked at that. Like when
Putting on yourself.
when I'm training, I'll grab my homies that I trust because I know, but like at a meet, you just trust that it's set up correctly.
Yeah. I mean,
and that is obviously the core issue. Is a CrossFitter should also go to the games and just assume that it's set up correctly.
exactly.
Right.
You assume that
Right.
it's set up correctly for
Right.
sure. And
But there's also freak shit. Like,
Yeah.
even if a powerlifting meet has the best spotters and loaders,
shit happens.
they could
still,
slip
yeah.
and I could get crumbled. I mean, we've talked about Brandon Lilly's injury being one of the craziest visually and probably physically. Obviously not death, but literally got one of the strongest humans on the planet getting absolutely sandwiched. And like, do you blame the spotters and loaders? Or do you blame freak shit?
Yeah, people want to blame the spotters and loaders, but I'm remembering that video. I don't know how they could have caught it.
Right. Freak shit happens. Freak shit happens. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take as much preventative measures as you can.
Yeah,
But if you're also competing, if you're living life.
Yeah. I could look it up at the Mark Bartley video that I shot from, a long, long time ago. He fell, but didn't take the bar with him. Like, he fell forward, out of the monolift because he tore his quad or hamstring, quad, I don't know. He got a bad tear. He couldn't walk afterwards. He made some terrible sounds. I think they may have had to cut the squat suit off of him because of like immediate swelling and all that. Just a real nightmare. But he didn't even fall with a bar. There was nothing that spotters could have done, and that was in the chains or straps or whatever on the monolift era.
Yeah.
I will say during that era, it was very common if you were going to a meet, you would recruit as many of your teammates to be going at the same time, and they might be the ones that stepped in to spot. And in those federations, it was a lot easier for that to happen. Whereas I think
it's not allowed anymore.
It's not really allowed anymore. Yeah.
Right. But then they do, it has evolved a little bit. They have spotting and loading crews that are supposedly responsible and have done it multiple times. But even then, like, freak shit can happen.
Yeah.
Someone can rip something, the bar can slip, the moisture in the air, or, we're all humans. There's human mistakes in spotting and loading. There's human mistakes in all this. And maybe there's human mistakes on, like how you push someone and how far you don't push someone,
Yeah, and I think too that like if you to maybe align this a little bit more with CrossFit in the same scenario with a powerlifting meet, but it's going to be in a hot location or outside or whatever, and you're not going to have the temperature mitigation kind of stuff that you would want to have, and you decide to go ahead and do that meet. Well, then it's really on you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think responsibility, even on this CrossFit event, as tragic it is, responsibilities, not balanced, but it's multiple places.
Yeah.
You can't just pinpoint an answer,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about elite athletics for $1 million.
Right.
Sure. Yeah, I think UFC actually, no one's technically died in the UFC. I know they have in MMA and boxing in general.
Boxing, yeah.
But then, like that responsibility too, right? Like, where are you going to put it? You're just going to like flip the sport upside down, and then what are the numbers? Obviously data can speak pretty good, and even CrossFit though by the numbers is probably doing decent.
CrossFit by the numbers, yeah, like you wouldn't necessarily,
right? Like how many people are doing CrossFit? Like the warehouse style gym got popular because of CrossFit, and across the nation, sure, some places, like I've been to a CrossFit in Cleveland, Ohio, and they had heater and HVAC because it's fucking 10 degrees in the winter, but a lot of places don't, depending on where you live. And they have less than average athletes in there every day going crazy, and maybe people have died and you just don't hear about it.
Yeah, I think that, that's a possibility, but I think that the kind of, the games have more scrutiny, and
for sure,
and nobody's died there yet. So like if you were purely from just an actuarial standpoint, you wouldn't assume that it was likely that someone would die in this scenario, but
yeah, people have died in soccer.
Yeah.
Just from heart stuff, similar thing, probably a mix of personal responsibility of sleep and hydration, plus pre-medical conditions, plus maybe a hot day or whatever, people drop dead on soccer fields. Yeah. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. My point, I guess, is sometimes I don't know if there is an answer, right?
I think there may not be an answer.
Because some of the responsibilities on the Fed to do the best they can, and some of the responsibilities on you to know your limits and be a human. Like, same idea. Like, you can go jog on the freeway right now. Like, something bad was probably gonna happen.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, that's a You're more likely to be a target in that environment. And not, we're not apologists for CrossFit at all. It's just that it's more complicated than people would like it to be, because in the aftermath of any tragedy, you're looking for an answer. You're looking for a scapegoat.
Yeah. No, CrossFit's at fault,
and you're looking for a way for it to not happen again.
Yeah, CrossFit's at fault, but they're just not all fault. CrossFit should have had the highest level fucking Navy SEAL lifeguards, right? Like, they should have some lifeguards that are highly competent, that are clearly in the video, not watching the swimmer swim. That's like the easiest finger. But my point is, that there's multiple blames to push around, or you can look at the positives or whatever opposite side, and like there is no blame, right? The same thing.
It's just an act of God.
Well, not about that, but as much as my point is that you can blame everyone, and you can also blame no one. Like, it's the same answer.
Yeah.
Right? Because the blame is multiple places.
Yeah.
The clear one is irresponsible of CrossFit to have shit lifeguards.
Yeah.
But then everywhere else, because the athlete has to have some responsibility. That athlete's coach has to have some responsibility. The other athletes have to have some responsibility. Whoever programmed it has responsibility. Like, the clear-cut one is, lifeguards.
Yeah, that's like the first line, and then the programming versus the conditions.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like the programming might have been fine, although it probably wasn't because of the sequence. Might have been fine I just making people swim when they're already exhausted in another discipline is difficult for me to rationalize.
Yeah, but exhausted's like a tough thing to just like gauge too.
Yeah.
Right? There's people that swim 30 miles.
Yeah.
So that's like saying, like, should you not swim 5 miles after you swam 5 miles? Well, if you're prepped for it.
Yeah. And this was, I don't know that any of the CrossFitters really have a deep background in swimming.
I think he did.
Did he?
Yeah, I think that's part of the story. I think he did. And I think a lot of them do.
And it was
Yeah, I think a lot of them are gangsters.
It was
especially.
pre 8 a.m. in the
Yeah, that I don't know. But and because CrossFit has added an element of swimming for the last 15 years, something's coming.
yeah.
All the CrossFitters I follow are swimming daily, if not weekly. And again, that's no blame here nor there either. Part of it obviously is like the fun of the sport, or the mystery factor is the randomness that you don't know what's coming. That's like the core value of CrossFit.
Yeah, it would seem to me like they could publish a mixture of stated events, prescribed events, and then like holes from mystery events that only are announced on the day of or whatever, and that would be just as effective as not knowing what any of them were.
I think they do that a little bit. I think they'll
Really?
put some out, but that doesn't take away from that one random one being the bad one.
No. Well, I would hope that, yeah.
Right? If you're saying random,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if there's two, if there's one. If one's the bad one,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a chance game.
And some of it is, I don't know. I mean, some of it could be more strategic and less exertional.
That's for sure. It is just, and visual capade, And then
Yeah.
Strongman probably does do the best version, although obviously you can get injured there. Strongman has randomness, but they'll give you a slight heads up.
Mhm.
Like, hey, there's stones in this one, and you don't always know exactly. Some competitions, local competitions, you'll know exactly what's happening. You got
Yeah.
stones over bar or whatever. But even the sport of strongman just has like slightly less barriers, and I think CrossFit does in pattern recognition, but in rules it doesn't. Like strongman rules are within these borders. They're not going to just
it's always
like,
going to be like this.
yeah, they're not going to show up with some random shit. You'll do a pull event. You might pull a car. You might pull a plane, but you're doing a pull event.
Mhm.
And where CrossFit, literally 10 years ago, they had them throw a baseball for distance,
Yeah.
and shoot a gun. I think one of them,
Yeah.
like target shooting, which is just so.
That one was weird. That
Yeah,
didn't
it's just out of the
understand
realm, and I get it. I mean, you're trying to like test hand-eye. Like I understand kind of what's going on, the general concept, but having no borders also.
Yeah. Why couldn't they make that? They could have made that part esports.
Yeah, well, that's why I argue that it's not a sport.
Yeah.
Like you got no boundaries. A sport
Right.
can't have no boundaries.
Right,
You can't. You
right.
got to have like qualified, standardized rules. Like that's got to be at least one pillar of sportdom.
Yeah. Going back to strongman for a second, if you know that if there's going to be a stone event, you're going to have to lift it somehow. You may or may not have to carry it a distance. You're going to have to, it's going to have to be onto something or over something.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to use tack. You're going to be able to use, some kind of a sleeve if you want to.
You just don't know if it's heavy for 1 or lightish for 100.
Right.
Yeah, but you're in the pocket.
Or progressive.
Right.
And, you
Right.
you need to get them all, or you need to get,
Yeah. I mean, that would do CrossFit. And again, if you go by pattern recognition of what's happened at the games, you can build your own boundaries. But the sport doesn't have boundaries.
It doesn't have boundaries,
Yeah.
So you can prepare to a certain extent, but you still don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
Whereas strongman, it's a little bit, like if you're going to lift if you're going to do some kind of a car lift or a deadlift or whatever, typically they allow a squat suit or a deadlift suit.
Yeah, that stuff they tell you ahead of time for
Yeah,
sure.
and
You don't train in a suit the whole time and show up and they're like no suits.
right.
Yeah, it doesn't really happen.
And we saw here too because we had 2 years of World's Strongest Man here, that they are careful about the times of day that they schedule stuff because these are big men and it gets very hot.
Yeah, Sacramento was a little rough because they do it June or May.
Yeah, they were doing it
Outdoors.
May, June.
I wonder why they
outdoors,
haven't tried to move it indoors. Like obviously the visual factor, but Brian's was indoors. It looked cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, depending on where you are, because it started a lot of times. It was in the beaches of L.A. Sure, the beaches of L.A.
Yeah, they were trying to make it look cool in the backdrop.
and that's 70 degrees in the beaches of May,
right
in L.A. But if you want to travel the world, China, I think that's the infamous one. I don't know what 2012 or something. A lot of them got sick and heat stroke and food issues and
But yeah.
If you make again, that's kind of like the randomness of theirs.
Somebody died later, and
yeah.
relative to that.
Yeah, it's hard. Tea is hard.
Well, I don't have anything else. I don't have any answers to this question, but it's something to think about.
Yeah, it is just really bad timing for the company and the brand, as it was already popularity-wise heading south-ish.
Yeah.
We talked a lot, and even the sport. It's the barbell itself is like less unified than it used to be because it grew. I think because it grew, that each niche was almost big enough, so they just kind of like isolated. Or again, in like 2013 to 2016, like there's a lot of crossover between bodybuilders and weightlifters and powerlifters and CrossFitters. Like the communities were close-ish. They didn't always get along, and not everyone was on the intersect, but there's a lot of people getting along on multiple sides, and now it just seems they all isolated. I don't know if it was COVID. I don't know what happened, but everyone just seemed to like crawl into their own niche, and I just never think that's good. I mean, you make any kind of echo chamber politically, sports-wise, friend-wise, it's just never a good thing. So, like, that doesn't help CrossFit either.
No.
Because a lot of those coaches in the early days were like crossover coaches. They'd grab a powerlifting coach, they'd grab a running coach, they'd grab a swimming coach, and they'd get better. And now there's like whatever a CrossFit coach is. A coach that's good at everything. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just unlikely. New episodes, fam. Every Wednesday. 3sb.co, 3rd Street, Barbell, Sacramento, California. I'm Sam Mike. Where you want to find me?
I am at the Jim McDean. All the social media. This show is 50% facts, 4% is a word, and 50 is just numbers. 50% facts. This is a Speaker Prime podcast in association with iHeartMedia on the Obscure Celebrity Network. And we'll talk to you next time.